Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the top 25 greatest 6 album runs that I feel we've seen in music history. So this is a feat that only a select bunch of bands or artists have ever done. I mean, 6 albums in a row of classic albums. They may not all be perfect albums, but they are memorable albums containing great songs. Maybe they're big sellers, maybe not big sellers, but artistically, most people feel that the albums in this run are all some of the best of that particular band. So believe this is episode number 4. So I picked out another 5 acts here that we're going to go through. We'll have another episode, then we'll do a bunch of honorable mentions. It's funny because I limited myself, I thought, because first I was kind of like, I think I have 25 of these. And then I started putting like the list together, and I'm like, I probably have more than 25. I have a lot more than 25, which is really, when you think about it, pretty crazy that there are bands that had 6 bang-up albums in a row, right, that are considered among their best, right? And to me, they have to be included here if, the 6 albums have to be really, really strong. They can't be a weak album in the run. And there have been some acts where I feel they certainly have 6 really, really strong classic albums, but there may be 1 or 2 kind of in the middle of a run that are good, but I wouldn't say they're great albums, right? So for me, all of these bands that I'm talking about, I feel very strongly that the 6 albums are spectacular. You may disagree, and that's okay. That's why I'm telling everybody, well, if you any of the ones that I'm picking you don't feel really strongly about, offer up another band that you do feel had 6 albums in a row that are just absolutely spectacular. So we're going to start off this episode today with that little band from Texas. That's right, ZZ Top, probably the preeminent power trio of all time, or one of them anyway. They burst on the scene with ZZ Top's first album. Now, ironically, most of these albums I'm going to show here today were big sellers also, in addition to what many fans consider and many critics consider like a great album from them. This one didn't certify, it didn't chart anywhere. I still think this is a spectacular ZZ Top album, and to me it's generally a top 3 ZZ Top album. I mean, you got Brown Sugar is on here, Going Down to Mexico, Just Got Back from Babies, Somebody Been Shaking Your Tree. This is gutsy, bluesy. Love Billy's tone on here. It's a pretty heavy album. You got the great dual vocals from Dusty and Billy. I mean, this is a spectacular debut album. And look at how different, I know that's a drawing, but look at how different they look back then, right? Yeah. Crazy, right? They didn't have a long beard. Billy had really short hair. They wore the hats, but so cool. Great songs on here. And this is like a precursor of what's to come. Then we've got Rio Grande Mud, which made it to number 104 in the U.S. charts, number 90 in Australia. Did not certify anywhere, though. Here, even improving on that debut. Great stuff on here. Francine is on here. Just Got Paid, Chevrolet, Whiskey and Mama, Barbecue. It's heavy, it's groovy. It's just, again, more searing heavy blues rock from the guys. Killer album. And then what I consider their best album, and one of the great albums of the 70s, which is Tres Hombres. Gold in the U.S. and Canada. Of course, made even better by that ridiculous looking Mexican spread there, right? All sorts of stuff on that plate. There's no weak tracks on this album. Waiting for the Bus, Jesus Just Left Chicago, Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers, Master of Sparks, Hot Blue and Righteous, Move Me On Down the Line. This album rocks, it grooves, it's bluesy, it's heavy. Precious and Grace, so heavy. Got the classic LaGrange. You got Chic and Have You Heard? this is what heavy Southern blues rock needs to sound like. Immense record here. Then we've got half studio, half live album. Still great, Fandango. Gold in the U.S., platinum in Canada. All right. Great stuff on here. Really great stuff on here. You got the medley. You got Blue Jean Blues. You got Tushes on here. Heard It on the X. Classic stuff right there. And then you got Tejas. Gold seller in the U.S. Right. It's Only Love is on here. Arrested for Driving While Blind. Classic song right there. El Diablo's on here. She's a Heartbreaker. Sleep of the Desert. Great instrumental. Wish they did more stuff like that because it's absolutely gorgeous. Killer album. And then, of course, the run ends for me with DeGeo. Platinum in the U.S., gold in Germany. This is the first album that I really got into ZZ Top with. I Thank You's on here. I'm Bad, I'm Nationwide. Of course, Cheap Sunglasses and on here. Manic Mechanic. Hi-Fi Mama. All sorts of good stuff on here. Great production on this album, too, as well. This is a pretty crazy run. And, of course, then you've got other stuff after this. I mean, there's a lot of people that, El Loco for me is good. I don't consider El Loco a great album. I like El Loco. And then, of course, you got Eliminator, which was the biggest selling album in their career. I like Eliminator. I'm not in love with Eliminator, but I know a lot of people, that's the ZZ Top they grew up on. So, and even some of those 80s albums, a lot of people really got into ZZ Top. Became a huge band because of those albums. So, but for me, it's these kind of 70s albums that really make up the 6-album run. So again, ZZ Top's first album, Rio Grande Mud, Tres Hombres, Fandango, Tejas, and DeGeo. This is the 6-album run for me when it comes to ZZ Top. All right, let's move. We're going to stay here in the U.S. In fact, I think, other than one band, this is an entirely U.S. episode. I think a lot of the other ones I've done have been UK-based. So this is a U.S. band from the great state of Kansas. That's right, I'm talking about Kansas, right? And for me, the first 6 albums of their career are immense, incredible. Big sellers. And artistically speaking, no other U.S. band really of any sort of popularity was doing British-style progressive rock. That prog rock was basically a UK thing, and other parts of the world in Europe and whatnot, Italy and so on and so forth. But really here in the U.S., U.S. bands were not really doing prog rock until Kansas. Then you had Happy the Man and other less notable bands, but the only one that really was doing it on a grand scale and selling records was Kansas, and they blended classic British progressive rock with a little bit of blues and boogie, certainly with some hard rock as well. So they did kind of a little bit of everything, but some of these early albums are just fantastic, right? So we've got the self-titled Kansas album, which was a gold seller here in the States, and again, these albums charted and certified, every one of them here in the States. But only Leftoverture, Point of No Return, and Monolith charted in countries other than the U.S. So this was kind of like a U.S. phenomenon. I've talked to many people from the U.K. who are like, Kansas were nothing here. I don't know why the Americans go on so much about Kansas. Kansas were really big here, right? Really big here. They sold lots of records. They toured a ton. Great albums, a couple of hit singles, right, which really helped drive those 2 really big selling albums. But there's fantastic progressive rock on all these other albums. So again, you've got the first album, which has Can I Tell You, Lonely Wind, Alexis. These are early Kansas classics. Journey from Mariabron, Apricot, Death of Mother Nature Suite. Awesome progressive rock stuff here. Classic first album. Second album, Song for America. Also gold here in the U.S. You have the amazing title track, Song for America, one of their best songs ever. Lamplight Symphony, Lonely Street, The Devil Game, Incomodro, Hymn to the Atman, right? Down the Road, which is more about a bluesy, heavy rocker. Killer album. Killer production on all these as well. All right, so then we move on to their third album, Mask, also gold here in the States. Some killer songs on here. Some of my favorite Kansas songs are from this album. Icarus, Born on Wings of Steel. Proggy and heavy. You got the amazing Child of Innocence. Very heavy song. Quite good. Then you got Mysteries and Mayhem. The Pinnacle is on here. You got 2 Cents Worth. It Takes a Woman's Love to Make a Man. There's a couple hard rock, bluesy, boogie songs on here. And then the proggy stuff. Excellent album right there. The dueling guitars, the dueling keyboards. Killer stuff. But of course, then they break big, right? So then you've got Leftoverture, which went 4 times platinum here in the U.S. Carry On Wayward Son carried this album to the stratosphere. A killer song. It's proggy. It's hook-laden AOR. It's hard rock. You have The Wall on here. What's on My Mind? Miracles Out of Nowhere. Opus Insert. Questions of My Childhood. Cheyenne Anthem. And, of course, the great magnum opus. This is prog rock at its finest, folks, but it's also catchy and somewhat radio-friendly. Killer album. My favorite Kansas album. And right up there, it's my number 2 favorite album from them, but it's close. Point of No Return. Also 4 times platinum. Again, the great single Dust in the Wind, but that only tells a part of the story. You got the soaring title track. You got the great Paradox, the intense instrumental The Spider. You got Portrait He Knew, Closet Chronicles, excellent song. The heavy Lightning's Hand, right? Sparks of the Tempest, another really cool heavy track. Nobody's Home, soaring pop of Nobody's Home. And then, of course, Hopelessly Human, gorgeous melodic prog rock. This is a great album. I wouldn't argue anybody that says this is their best album, even over Left Overture, because I think these 2 albums is pinnacle Kansas. But they still had one more really great album in them. And the Audiovision is really good as well. I wouldn't call Audiovision's great, but it's really good. But the reason why I'm ending my run here, it's starting with the first album and ending with Monolith, is because Monolith is damn good. It maybe doesn't quite reach the heights of Point of No Return and Left Overture, but it's a really underrated album for them. This also would go platinum here in the States. All right. On the other side is terrific. You got People of the South Wind, which was released as a single. Really catchy song. Lovely violin from Robbie on that. The ominous Angels Have Fallen. The heavy How My Soul Cries Out For You. The gorgeous Glimpse of Home. Away From You. Stay Out of Trouble, another blistering hard rocker from the band. And The Lovely Reason to Be. This is a really, really strong album. But by here, we're getting ready to, it's 1979. Music's changing. Prog rock is kind of fallen out of favor, obviously in the UK years before, but here in the States. And Kansas will go on to make a little bit more accessible music over the next couple albums. Still kind of proggy, but definitely more accessible. But that is, to me, is a fantastic run right there. All right. Staying in the U.S. I'm going to cheat a little bit here. But since it's my show, I can do that. This is a band that had a tremendous 5-album run right out of the gate. I generally only include studio albums for all of these picks. I don't include live albums. I have to do it for this one. Because if I look at the first 6 studio albums in this band's career, album number 6 comes out a decade plus after their last one. And that first studio album after the reformation is good. I don't know if it's great. I don't know if it fits into this format. However, this band, right before the last album, before the plane crash, had a live album out that is absolutely tremendous. So I figured I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to include Lynyrd Skynyrd on this one. So, of course, we've got Pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd, the debut, double platinum album here in the States. What more can you say about their classic debut, The Birth? You could argue, obviously the Allman Brothers came before and Charlie Daniels Band, but really Southern rock, the way we knew it throughout the rest of the 70s, really started here. I Ain't the One, Tuesday's Gone, Free Bird, Gimme 3 Steps, Simple Man, Mississippi Kid, Things Going On, Poison Whiskey. I mean, this is legendary. Absolutely legendary. Raunchy American rock and roll. It's got blues, got jazz, got country, it's got hard rock. They take their cue from bands like Free in the UK, right, and just make it American. Classic album. That's followed up by Second Helping, 2 times platinum here in the States. Again, Sweet Home Alabama, all these other classic songs on here. Swamp Music, Working for MCA, all the hits, right? I don't need to go over every single song on here. Another legendary, I know plenty of people who that's their favorite Skynyrd album. I can't argue that much. Nothing Fancy. Again, platinum here in the States, their 3rd album. More legendary tracks. Saturday Night Special, right? On the Hunt, one of my favorite songs from the band. Am I Losing, Whiskey Rock-a-Roller, other great songs on here. Look at the attitude dripping from the Skynyrd guys. Amazing stuff. All right, then we're going to go to Give Me Back My Bullets. Gold seller here in the States. Another one. There have been times I really want to have this as my favorite Skynyrd album. That's the thing about all these Skynyrd studio albums. Any one of them could potentially any day of the week be my favorite Skynyrd album. They're that good. Give Me Back My Bullets, the title track is on here. Every Mother's Son, Double Trouble, Double Trouble. Man, Ronnie's vocal's so good. Searchin' is terrific. Cry for the Bad Man, heavy, gritty Southern rock here. Give Me Back My Bullets is terrific. So then they do some lineup changes. Steve Gaines comes into the band. So now you got Steve Gaines, and you got Mr. Collins, Mr. Rosington forming this new guitar trio. Tremendous. They release one more from the road. One of the great live albums of the 70s. Again, contains all of their top tracks. Blistering live album recorded at the Atlanta Fox Theater, July 1976. Welcome to the band, Mr. Gaines. Shortly thereafter, they release, and that was 3 times platinum, by the way, Street Survivors, the lone studio album with this lineup. 2 times platinum in the U.S. Another one that arguably could be my favorite Skynyrd album. I really love this album a lot. What's Your Name is on here. That Smell, One More Time, I Know a Little. Got that right. I mean, this is funky. It's melodic. It's raunchy. Steve Gaines not only is an amazing guitar player, but proved to be a good songwriter as well. Great backup singer. What they could have done with this lineup had the plane crash not happened. And as you can see by the fire, right, that kind of exemplified and predicted what was to come, unfortunately. So, yeah, so cheating on that one a little bit, including the live album, but that's okay, I think. All right, we're going to move on. Another U.S. band. That's right. I could not do this without talking about, hold on, I did not put the CDs in order here. Creedence Clearwater Revival, right? So, of course, these are some of the great albums and one of the great bands of the 60s. Tons of hit singles, big album sales, toured everywhere. You could not turn on the radio back in the day. Even today, if you listen to like classic rock radio, they still play a shit ton of their music. Great singles band, great album band. CCR is the debut album, comes out. This one goes platinum. Of course, this one has the great I Put a Spell on You, Susie Q, Porterville. Great stuff. How do you describe Creedence Clearwater Revival? Swamp rock, right? That's so many people just call Creedence swamp rock. And I couldn't argue that one too much, right? All right, so let me get my albums here. So album number 2 is, of course, the great Bayou Country, double platinum here in the States. Okay, this one, of course, has the classic Born on the Bayou, the great bootleg. I absolutely love bootlegs, so catchy. Good Golly, Miss Molly, Penthouse Pauper, Proud Mary's on here, Keep on Chooglin'. It's like nearly 8 minutes, the studio version, but if you listen to any of their live albums or live recordings, Keep on Chooglin' generally stretches out really long. You know, John Fogerty, what a terrific guitar player, you know, him and his brother and the rest of the guys. Excellent album. And then, of course, that is followed up by the wonderful Green River. Green River, of course, 3 times platinum. So it's each album sells more and more copies and loaded with singles, right? The title track, Green River. You got Commotion. Arguably my favorite Creedence song. I wrote a song for everyone. Love that tune. Bad Mood Rising's on here. Lodi's on here. Lodi is just absolutely terrific. Sinister Purpose, raunchy and heavy. The Nighttime is the Right Time. Tombstone Shadow. I mean, this is... I pretty sure when I did the ranking, I picked this as my number 1 Creedence album. This is just loaded from top to bottom. And all these albums are like 30 minutes, right? Maybe 35 tops. Just every song. Boom, 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 boom. Just classic stuff. All right, next up we're going to go to Willie and the Poor Boys. Double platinum here in the States. And by the way, will mention that all of these albums pretty much charted everywhere in the world. Right? Didn't necessarily certify everywhere, but charted everywhere. Sold lots of copies here, but Creedence was a great singles band throughout the entire country. Down on the Corners on this one. You got Poor Boy Shuffle. You got Fortunate Son. Classic song. Effigies on here. It Came Out of the Sky. Cotton Fields. Great stuff. And then, of course, Cosmos Factory followed that. 4 times platinum here in the States. This guy sold a shit ton of albums, and the singles did really well. This has got the great Ramble Tamble, another good jammy song. Before You Accuse Me, Traveling Bands on here, Ooby Dooby, Looking Out My Back Door, loads of singles here. Run Through the Jungle, Up Around the Bend, My Baby Left Me, Who'll Stop the Rain, Heard It Through the Grapevine, As Long as I Can See the Light. I mean, one after another after another. If you were to tell me Cosmo's Factory is your favorite, for me, I think this and Green River are just, you can't beat them. Just can't beat them. Top to bottom, so many great songs. And then, of course, we're going to finish it off with Pendulum, which is platinum. Okay? This has got, It's Just a Thought, Pagan Bay, Born to Move, Have You Ever Seen the Rain, Hey Tonight, Hey Tonight. So good. Chameleon's on here, Melina. Not the kind of hits machine like some of the other ones were, but this, along with the debut, I think, are less about all the hits and more about just really good deep tracks. This is the last really strong album. The album that came out after this, Mardi Gras, not all that good. But this is great. 6 albums right out of the bat. Creedence Clearwater Revival. Can't beat that. Last but not least, we are going to go to the UK for a band that so many of you in the comments of the last 3 videos were like, please tell me you're going to mention the Moody Blues. Of course I am. Days of Future Past is the second album, right? So we're not the first album, of course, with Denny Lane, much more of kind of like a pop, R&B, rhythm and blues, soul type of album, so to speak. But it's on Days of Future Past where all of a sudden, Denny leaves and they decide they're going to do more of this kind of like symphonic rock approach. It's kind of like psychedelic sort of, but more symphonic rock, very serious. Orchestra and mellotron and arguably the beginnings of prog rock, right? Days of Future Past, platinum in the US and Canada, silver in the UK. A concept album about the days of the week. You got, it's broken up. The day begins, dawn, the morning, lunch break, the afternoon, evening, and the night. Of course, the night in the album is capped off by Nights in White Satin, the legendary Nights in White Satin. From there, we go on to, and of course, my CDs are in the wrong order, In Search of the Lost Chord. Platinum in Canada, gold in the US, silver in the UK. These albums were big sellers in most of the major markets. Right here, of course, you've got Ride My Seesaw, Dr. Livingston, I presume, Legend of a Mine, Voices in the Sky, The Actor. Great stuff here. And again, they would continue on with this very same kind of formula and presence. These soaring, very melodic, psychedelic rock songs, but very symphonic. Loads of mellotron on all these albums. Great vocal harmonies. You got a couple of the guys in the band singing, so you get these different vocal flavors. It's pop. It's early prog for sure, but not overly complicated music. But just the way it's all layered and orchestrated, it's just, you can't not count the Moody Blues as one of the forerunners of the whole progressive rock scene. So In Search of the Lost Chord, dynamite album. All right, then they're followed up with that with On the Threshold of a Dream, platinum in the US and Canada, silver in the UK. Arguably, one of their best here. It's hard. I mean, these are all equally really good. You got In the Beginnings on here, Dear Diary, So Deep Within You, Lazy Days on here, Are You Sitting Comfortably? What a gorgeous song that is. The Dream, The Voyage. Oh, The Voyage is absolutely terrific. Then you got the whole Have You Heard stuff. This is really good. Really good. Really well-produced albums, too. Very lush sounding. From there, we go to our children's children. Platinum in Canada, gold in the US. Again, another intense album. Eyes of a Child. 2 parts here. Gypsy's on here. Gypsy is perhaps my favorite Moody Blues song. That's just absolutely amazing. Candle of Life on here. What else? Watching and Waiting's on here. Higher and Higher. Great stuff. And then, of course, you've got A Question of Balance. Love that cover. Look at that. This has the amazing Question of Balance. Was platinum in Canada and US. So this has got the Great Question. Don't You Feel Small's on here. Tortoise in the Hare. This really good stuff. Minstrel Song is on here. The Balance, Melancholy Man, Dawning of the Day. Again, not tons and tons of hit singles on these albums, but really good, like just album sides and things, right? These albums flow really well. And instead of just pulling out singles, you have to listen to these albums like in their entirety to get the kind of flow of them, which really well put together. And then, of course, the last in this run is Every Good Boy Deserves Favor, which was platinum in Canada, gold in the US. Here you got Procession, The Story in Your Eyes, absolutely gorgeous. Emily's Song, absolutely gorgeous. You Can Never Go Home, My Song. I mean, here's another lovely album. I just always love the cover art on that. Look at that, just gorgeous stuff. And these album covers, they perfectly portray the charmingness of these albums, which I think is really cool. So all of these albums that I mentioned here from the Moody Blues, all were top 10 or 20 albums in most territories around the world. These were pretty big sellers everywhere. And it's looked at as their peak period. And now, most people do say, though, however, I will mention it because we've had a couple of instances of bands like this that technically have 7 albums. So Seventh Sojourn is album 7. That should be included because Seventh Sojourn is terrific as well. So really, this band's got a 7-album run of greatness. And we're looking at a short span of time here, right? So this is basically 1967 and 1972. So the Moody Blues pumped out a lot of best-selling, very well-regarded and beloved albums in that short little 5-year time span. And, became one of the most prolific bands of that time period. And, you look back on those albums, and that's a pretty glorious run. Not too many bands have like a 7-album run of that quality. Strong sellers for sure, but just real beloved albums that most people really dig quite a bit and still treasure to this day. And yeah, they sound from their time, obviously. The Moody Blues have that sound. Some people call it dated, but it's late 60s, very early 70s sound. And it's you hear a Moody Blues album from that time period, and you know that's when it came from. It's just got all those qualities, and there's a charm to that of course I love, right? So here you have the 5 more choices: Moody Blues, Creedence Clearwater Revival, ZZ Top, Lynyrd Skynyrd, and Kansas. 4 U.S. bands, 1 U.K. band for this round. We've got another one coming up over the next week or two, so stay tuned for that. And then, of course, I'll do an entire honorable mention show. So hope you've enjoyed these so far. I really enjoyed doing these. It's just so funny. I keep coming up with more and more bands that I consider for this run. I mean, I've got one artist, a couple of them actually, who arguably have many different classic 6-album runs in their catalog. So I'll try to deal with that as best as I can on the honorable mentions episode. So I'm not going to include them on the main one because it's just too difficult. But I got plenty more to come, so stay tuned. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also, down below in the video description, you've got the link to our merch page where we can get all sorts of cool Sea of Tranquility stuff. This is our great prog shirt. We've got the link to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, as well as the link to our webzine, so you can go check that out as well. So thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned. Coming up here on the channel, we've got, you should have it later tonight, we have a concert review. So, of course, my brother Rich and Jack Toledano and I went to see the Winery Dogs at the Starland Ballroom in Sayreville, New Jersey just the other day. So we're going to bring you a little concert review of that. We ran into Sydney Taylor, of course. Sydney's working the merch table for the band on this entire U.S. tour. Got to hang out with Mike Portnoy for a little bit. Briefly said hello to Billy Sheehan. And, so it was very, very cool. Saw Gary Joyce, right? The Principal Joyce. Gary was in the house. Met up with Gary. Ran into another loyal viewer, Al Horta, and a couple other Sea Tranquility viewers were in the house. So it was good to see everybody and go out and check out some live music, and had like the best pizza ever before the show down nearby, down in the Jersey area there. Brooklyn Square, tomato pie. Oh, just unbelievable. I'm still thinking about it now. I'm still wanting more. I told my brother like the day after, I'm like, man, I'm jonesing for some more of that pizza. He goes, well, next time you come around, we'll go back. I'm like, hell yeah, we will. So, me and my pizza, man. It's one thing. I don't really eat junk food. I'm not a fast food guy or any of that kind of stuff. I try to eat pretty healthy. But, man, since I was a little kid, it's the Italian in me. I could eat pizza every day. That's like the one kind of junk food that I just can't ever get enough of. Good pizza to me is like the most amazing thing on the planet. So, yeah, there you have it. We went from talking about classic 6-album runs to talking about pizza. How does Pete always do it? I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you shortly with another new one. Don't forget, stay tuned. We've got the Hudson Valley Squares coming up tomorrow. Pretty cool show. We have I've picked out 15 classic hard rock and metal songs that have a Dynamite studio version. The original studio version is really good, but the band also has a classic live album, and the live version of that song is also really, really great as well. So I've given the entire crew the list They are re-listening to everything. We're going to come to the show, and everybody's going to talk about which they prefer, the original studio version or the live version. So that's coming up tomorrow on the Hudson Valley Squares. We've got, in just a few days on Thursday, we've got the Return of the Monsters Den. This week, myself and the crew will be ranking our favorite 10 Bela Lugosi performances, right? Those films that feature Bela Lugosi. We're going to pick out our 10 favorites. And then, of course, next weekend we've got ranking the albums. I will be ranking the catalog of the great, mostly power trio, but sometimes they were a four-piece, Hot Tuna. Electric and acoustic Hot Tuna. They got a bunch of albums, and I'll be ranking those. So that's coming up. Jorma Kaukonen and Jack Cassidy and crew. So that's coming up on Sunday. So till then, have a good week, everybody. We'll see you real soon. I'm Pete Pardo. Bye-bye.